They're expecting rainfall in the Toronto area tonight, so the Rogers Centre will be closed for the opener of a 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs. And there's a wee bit of desperation around this team right about now. This team, the Toronto Blue Jays, has won 7 of their last 11 games. My goodness, doesn't that sound great? It does, but 3 of those losses came consecutively against the Los Angeles Angels on the weekend, and there seems to be a bit of panic with respect to the home team. So glad you could join us here on Blue Jays Central. Jamie Campbell, Caleb Joseph, Joe Siddall, they have lots to say. Let's hear first, though, from the manager of the Blue Jays after his team's 3rd straight loss yesterday.
What is the key to getting the best out of this team, especially at this big stretch run that you guys are going to have? Look
at the standings and understand that every game is important, and 3 hours out of your day needs to be completely focused on trying to win. So that's the goal going forward. I'm never the type of guy that will go in there and flip a table. At this point, it's up to the players to say this is not good enough, and I'm sure they're talking about that right now. And you trust that the guys who are leaders and the guys that are veterans in the team take care of that. And, tomorrow starts a new series.
So the manager wants at least 3 hours out of your day, perhaps a little bit more. And you can see, like every other team in the major leagues, the Blue Jays get hot and cold over the course of a season. Remember, they went on the road very recently into New York, took 3 of 4, swept a 3-game series against the Boston Red Sox. Every team seems to go through this. The Yankees are doing so as we speak. And so the Blue Jays are in a wee bit of a rut, and they have the Baltimore Orioles not in action tonight, closing in, so the Blue Jays could at least gain a half game if they happen to beat the Cubs tonight. So there's lots to address. Let's get you to field level, where Hazel May is with Arden Zwelling.
Jamie, thank you very much. We heard from manager John Schneider there in that soundbite earlier this afternoon. General manager Ross Atkins held a media availability. I asked him what his observations were on a team that had a widely successful road trip only to return home and get swept by the Angels. Here's what Atkins had to say.
It can become easy to fall in the trap of expecting perfection from human beings, which just isn't going to happen. So we have the benefit of seeing under the hood and get to see, and you do as well, to see the work that goes in on a daily basis, their preparation, their conversations about accountability, and that gives me a great deal of confidence in where this team is. They're accountable, they're very honest with one another, they're having really open, honest feedback that I'm fortunate enough to hear the specifics of, and wish that I could share that with the fans to give them more confidence, but it gives me a great deal of it. We're coming up on September with our destiny in our control. A lot of games against teams that we're competing for these final spots with, and feel like we're going to get hot and make a nice run.
I think it's everyone's role, myself included, staff included, and players included, to kind of just stay together, understand that we're very talented, and the last 3 days weren't our best showings. And if you look beyond that a week ago, I think that was some of our best showing. So it was just kind of weird sequencing in the outcome of the games. But you look for guys who have been around to kind of take the guys who haven't been around under their wing a little bit and say, hey, we're a good team. Everything's okay. It's not the end of the world. And we still have a lot of meaningful baseball left to play.
George Springer is one of those guys, and he told me, Arden, that they're not panicking at all, but to be clear, they haven't been playing their best baseball.
No, they haven't. And look, the pitching really hasn't been the issue if we're looking for silver linings here, but the issue really has been offensively and defensively as well. And we can start with the offensive approach, and maybe this goes without saying when you go 1 for 19 with runners in scoring position during a series and strand 27 runners, but the Blue Jays need to be better with runners on base. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. should not be chasing pitches off the plate more often with runners in scoring position than he is without. So that is where the Blue Jays need to stay within themselves, not do too much, not expand the zone, not swing at pitchers' pitches, and if they get walked, just pass the baton. And then you look at the mental miscues as well, the errors in the field. I don't have enough time to recount all of them, but John Schneider was very direct after the game yesterday in saying we need to be focused on winning for 3 hours every night. I think the Blue Jays feel that there has been a lack of focus over the weekend. The good news is you have a new series, you have another beatable team. The last team was beatable as well, but this one, you're going to be wearing your Reds. I know the fans feel a certain way about that. Jose Barrios wanted to wear the Reds today. Maybe that's a shake-up the Blue Jays need.
George Springer has definitely been doing his part. In more outfield news, Teoscar Hernandez not in the lineup, and the Blue Jays reacquiring Bradley Zimmer. What can you tell us about those two moves?
So with Teoscar, we all saw him in the game on Sunday, and he did not look his best when he was running the bases. Now, he made an impact at the plate. He reached base in 3 of his 4 plate appearances. That's why he was in there. The Blue Jays wanted that offense, but running the bases, he didn't look great, and he was really one of the people who committed a lack of focus error, a mental miscue in the game in the 6th inning when he didn't run hard towards second base, didn't slide in when he had an opportunity, wasn't aggressive in that situation. So Teoscar Hernandez is going to have a night off his feet tonight to hopefully get over those contusions on his left foot and be able to play in the coming days. Bradley Zimmer, he's like the Liam Neeson of this team. He has a very particular set of skills. That is defense and base running. So the Blue Jays are going to bring him back for that speed and to spell outfielders in the outfield down the stretch. He'll join the team on Friday when rosters expand, take one of those fresh roster spots. A pitcher will fill the other one. Julian Merriweather, a pretty good candidate to be that guy.
All right, and staying with pitchers, we look forward to seeing Jose Barrios out there on the mound. Jamie, as he gets set for his 26th start of this season. Back to you.
Hazel, let's bring in Caleb Joseph and Joe Siddall to try and assess how they fix what was witnessed on the weekend against the Los Angeles Angels. For those of you who are close to my age, you'll remember a song from the 80s by the Alan Parsons Project called Games People Play. I'll steal a line from that song, Caleb. Where do we go from here?
Well, it's easy to look back and think there's a lot of physical stuff that needs to be done, but reality is you've got to just stick to the basics, right? When you're in the middle of a losing streak like this and just some kind of sloppy play, just get back to basics. When the Blue Jays stick to those basics, they usually win because they've got a lot of talent. So what are the basics? What can you control? You can control attitude, you can control effort, you can control focus. You saw Arden talk about the focus, and what does that mean? That means playing the next play before it happens and being ready and not taking that good throw for granted in terms of just kind of casually going to it. Make sure it gets in the pocket. These little bitty tiny incremental plays where a lack of focus has been costing them. So get back to the basics. Do everything right on the field. Stick with all the things that have made them successful because the talent is there. When they don't beat themselves, they have enough talent to outright win.
If you could push a button to make your team play better, I think John Schneider would push it, and he'd probably push it repetitively, but it's just not the way the game works. And I think yesterday postgame we talked about like a reboot and a refocus, and Schneider mentioned that today. It's a new series, and sometimes when the series ends and a new series begins and a new team comes to town, it is a reboot. It's like starting over. So you put everything behind you that happened, as bad as it all was, and you go and try to take 2 out of 3 or 3 from the Cubs, because when a new team comes in, that's the joy of baseball, is that you can go and start fresh. But I still don't think there's urgency. I still don't think there's any time to panic. I think we've circled some games in mid-September when Tampa Bay comes to Toronto. That's when things are going to get real interesting. But I think for now, you just keep going about your business, and you expect your players to take the lead here. You don't need managers and coaches motivating players. If they need to motivate players at this time of year, then you've probably got the wrong players.
Well, speaking of motivation, there were a lot of people watching the games on the weekend who were wondering why, in some instances, based on what they perceived to be a lack of effort, players weren't yanked off the field. And I know you've had experience with a manager coming to you based on what they think was lack of effort. How does that impact a player?
Yeah, it can be a monumental moment in your career, in just the game in general, in that, I'll tell you this, it was a blowout game in Boston. I had 3 hits. I hit a home run that game, and in my third at-bat, I got a base hit, okay? Bases loaded. We're station to station at that point. I make this big, long banana curve and kind of lollygag it down the first baseline. Blowout game. After the game, manager calls me in. He says, hey, man, just so you know, we don't run the bases that way, okay? Your teammates expect more from you. You should expect more out of yourself, and this is not how we play, and we're going to nip it in the bud right here, right? And I was in shock. I thought he was going to tell me how proud he was of the 3-hit game I had, and that was in a blowout game. But when you have a monumental moment like that, it can really jar you, and it stayed with me, and I ran the bases with intent every day after that.
The manager in question was Buck Showalter,
Absolutely.
correct? Okay. Thought we should clarify that. So, 36 games remain, including tonight's against the Chicago Cubs, and so many of them, as you can see, are against contending teams. Note that they'll face Baltimore 10 more times. They'll face the Rays 9 more times. But for now, they get to face quote-unquote non-contenders like the Cubs the next 3. They get Thursday off, and then they'll go to Pittsburgh and play the Pirates for 3. So if there's a time to build a little bit, this might be it. Conversations on the field prior. They'll get down to business against the Cubs tonight on Sportsnet, and we look forward to this one, believe me. Stay with us here on Blue Jays Central.